Okay, we've got a lot to talk about with UFOs today, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I'll talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yeah, to start with, Matt Ford and Garry Nolan are both vouching for the credibility of Jake Barber.
Oh, I worked with him directly for a week, and anybody who thinks that he's other than what he presents himself as just should get out of the way. There's no reason to think of him as anything other than an honest broker at every level, ethical to the nth degree, empathic to a degree that I wouldn't, frankly, bizarrely expect as an academic elitist from somebody in a military capacity as such that he is. Far more human than many of the scientists with whom I have to interact every day.
Bold words from Garry, and he's not alone. Matt Ford says, "Let me state this for the record. Jake Barber is the real deal. Full stop. There are some influential folks that are trying to sow doubt behind the scenes. These same people did this with Rush in an attempt to poison the well because they want to control what disclosure looks like for their own selfish reasons with the dollar sign. Jake is the real deal, and you can take that to the bank." Yeah, indeed. From what I have seen, I completely agree. I think Jake is the real deal. And it's disturbed me to see all the pushback to Jake's information. I find that very frustrating because it goes into some really interesting and fascinating places, like these summoning events where they will use a psionic to summon a UFO. And Ross Coulthart and Garry Nolan are both talking about independent summoning events they went to where Jake and his team were involved. Ross Coulthart is talking about an event at Esalen. Am I saying that right? Yeah, at Esalen, there's a beautiful location, 3.5, 4 hours south of San Francisco. And yeah, it's a gathering of the elite where they show off some funky stuff, and it sounds like the place to be. Man, I wish I could have been there. Also, if you didn't think UFO summoning could be sexy, check this story out from Ross. There was a summoning event, and blue orbs were promised, and at first blue orbs didn't show up, but then this happened.
Because it's for Alex Clokus and the Skywatcher team to reveal how much they want to reveal, because it's a beautiful story. But basically, I'll tell you this. We were in one part of Esalen, and there were a whole lot of people in the hot springs at Esalen on the other side of the hill. And I'm far too shy as an old guy to go and sit in hot springs with beautiful young women. But there were essentially a bunch of beautiful young people sitting stark naked in these hot springs on the other side of Esalen. And all of a sudden, they see these blue shapes coalescing in front of them. And sure enough, we got images from the hill looking down of a blue orb.
Yeah, I don't know what else is in those images, but it sounds like something. I'm not going to say anymore. But that sounds like an amazing event to have gone to. Man, I'm just so jealous of everybody who got to attend that incredible event. Garry Nolan also was invited to participate in a Skywatcher summoning ritual, or not ritual, but event, a CE5 session. Ritual sounds bad. Let's not use ritual. Yeah, let's take a gander at what Garry has to say.
So what do I have? I have a person who claims to be doing something. It was clear that he was in distress at the moment of the supposed interaction. And at that moment, something is seen. What do you have? You have a correlation. You don't have a causation. And so that's it. But I was there not to provide any conclusions. I was there to make sure that everything that was being done in a scientifically accurate way.
Yeah, he goes on to say that he was there in part to make sure that if a scientific paper was written about it, that they had, crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's to make it, acceptable for a peer-reviewed scientific paper on that event, if indeed one ever happened. But Jake Barber isn't the only one being validated and vindicated lately. Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch is now vindicating Randy Anderson, who came out a week or two ago talking about his incredible experiences where he was exposed to some ET or NHI tech, apparently, including one crazy gauntlet that had hieroglyphics coming out of it. So listen to Lieutenant Colonel Blitch validating Randy Anderson and saying that he had some involvement with that story.
I absolutely hope so. I think it's already happening. Randy just came out. I talked to him a year ago. I'm certainly not. Dave wanted me to play a similar role with him as with Jake and his guys. He just came out. He did a podcast and he was talking about, as an 18 Bravo. Now he is a verifiable Green Beret who had a fascinating experience at the Crane Naval Special Warfare Facility. Brought downstairs, deep down into a very sophisticated facility, and was exposed to, incidentally, a very similar looking device that Bob Lazar talked about back in 1988, this sphere sort of thing. So,
yeah, he saw the sphere and he saw the gauntlet. So there you go, Lieutenant Colonel Blitch sticking up for Randy Anderson. I love it. Micheal Herrera and Stephen Greer are also being vindicated by all of this information coming out and by people vouching for other people. And one of the biggest mysteries has been about the pods that Micheal Herrera saw on that man-made octagonal, or whatever we're calling it, the 8 Gong UFO in Indonesia, which was bigger than the 8 Gong UFO that Jake Barber saw in his UFO retrieval, the one that he had that amazing experience with this female entity interacting with him. That was a smaller version, potentially, of the same sort of craft that Micheal Herrera saw in Indonesia, which opens up a lot of questions, because if these things are man-made and he's interacting with a female entity through that, really, really interesting. What does that mean? What does that imply? Or was that thing Micheal Herrera saw a man-made version based on an NHI craft that Jake Barber transported? Either way, what were those pods that were, being transported with the 8 Gong, if we're going to call it that, in Indonesia? Because at first, information was coming out that maybe there were unwilling, captives in there that were being forcibly recruited for the Psionic program. But it doesn't appear anymore that that's the case.
And the reason why those pods are significant, I think originally Micheal Herrera and Stephen Greer mistakenly assumed that these pods were being used for trafficking humans against their will, that there was some kind of criminal human trafficking operation going on. It's all possible, it's illegal or criminal, but the simple fact is these people were not, I'm told, being taken against their will. But what I can tell you is that Jake has told me that the pod that Micheal Herrera gave Jake a very clear and accurate description of is essentially conforming to the shape and design of the objects that are used by the psionic assists in the program.
Yeah, so really important detail that the people in Indonesia were the human operators of that craft were likely not transporting people against their will. So yeah, definitely an important detail to keep in mind. That's something that Jake has spoken to. And we need a lot of details. We need a lot more details than we have. We don't know much about what they were doing. They were pointing guns at Micheal and his people, so not super friendly, but they did let them leave. So, are they good guys or bad guys, or probably very much in the gray area? We don't know yet. But it is important also to keep in mind that it was Micheal Herrera's information when he presented it originally that got Jake Barber's attention. And it's why Jake approached him, because he knew Mike had seen something legit. Speaking of Micheal Herrera, Joey is not my name, UFO researcher and Micheal Herrera researcher. Joey is not my name, who I've had on the show before, has, with Michael's permission, published a phone call that he, when he recorded a phone call between himself and Mike. It's over 2 minutes long, but let me play, or it's almost 2 minutes long, but let me play a little bit of it.
Hey, Hey, Michael.
Hey, what's up, buddy? I got a little time before I have to kick off this meeting here at 9:30.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I just, first of all, wanted to check in with you, see how you're doing, how you're feeling.
Good. Tomorrow's the meeting with these guys, so I'm kind of, I'm nervous about it, a little apprehensive. But
Right.
if this is going to get carried any further, then I need to, I need to speak to the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I just, it is what it is at this point. But
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I'm just kind of checking in. I mean, like, geez. So everything's basically all set for the meeting.
Yeah, tomorrow.
For tomorrow.
So I arrived there around o'clock.
Yeah.
Their time, and then they're picking me up with picking me up. They're putting me in, and
Right.
then I'm going to some. Apparently, there's a facility out in that they're taking me to, and then a flight somewhere to go see some things. So I don't know what that entails, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's talking about Mike being taken out to the black site that he was taken out to. Oh, and here's an interesting back and forth between Joey Is Not My Name and Fred Baker, who, of course, worked with Jake Barber and works with Jake Barber. And I think he's part of Skywatcher. Joey says, perhaps worth noting, Mike Herrera's interview on Sean Ryan was conducted prior to Michael being flown out to meet Jake privately in person for the first time. But Fred Baker says, incorrect. Jake made contact with Mike for the first time at the disclosure event in D.C. That's Stephen Greer's disclosure event, prior to his appearance on Sean Ryan. And UAP Gerb says, agreed, Mr. Baker. I believe Joey was trying to say the SRS appearance aired before Jake and Michael met again at a location. Our interview with Michael took place after he had been to the location and gained further insight from Jake. And Joey says, I should have made that more clear. When they met at the event, Jake wasn't able to be forthright with Michael about who he was. It wasn't until he flew out to meet Jake privately where Jake was able to discuss things with Michael in more detail. The reason I point this out is to explain why the Sean Ryan interview has a different interpretation of the events Michael witnessed in Indonesia compared to after Jake was able to clarify things. So yeah, some definitely important things to keep in mind there, including the information about the pods. So I just love all this. Jake is being vindicated. Michael Herrera, Stephen Greer, Randy Anderson, all being vindicated and corroborated and able to corroborate each other and to be corroborated by others. Joey Is Not My Name, not affiliated with Lieutenant John Blitch, but they were all able to corroborate parts of this information. So yeah, I just love it. It's just a wealth of stuff that's coming out. As for speaking to AARO, Michael says, for clarification, I testified to AARO in April of 2023. Prior to heading over to AARO, I also testified to the Senate Intelligence Committee along with the Senate Armed Services Committee. They did this as a measure to see whether or not AARO would disclose the proper testimony to Congress. This was part of the report that they sent back. I never once said it was U.S. Special Forces or that the craft itself was an ET craft. This was spun in an entirely different direction. From what I hear now, that AARO has a new and better leadership. They may be doing the right thing moving forward since the new director was placed in that role. Yeah, Jake and Mike are more optimistic about AARO now that Kozlowski is leading it. We'll see how that goes. But, he has said previously that AARO has seen no sign of advanced or exotic technology. So I'm not super optimistic about Kozlowski, but I do think that he's going to be at least incrementally better than Sean Kirkpatrick. At least he will put on that appearance. Last but not least, a robotic dog fighting with a drone. We live in a crazy world, guys. Let me know what you think about it all in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I would sure appreciate it. Smash the like button, the subscribe button, and of course the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, there's coffee mugs, there's t-shirts in the merch store. You can become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.